You know, it's kind of funny. I gave a keynote recently at PayPal's conference, Innovate, where they were introducing their web services API. And they introduced me as a visionary. And I was backstage, and I misheard it, and I thought that they'd introduced me as a missionary. And it was incredibly appropriate, because I do feel many times that I am a missionary. I am preaching about how to build a better future for the web. And with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of the web. Now, I love the web. You know, back when we first, those of us who were there at the beginning, and we saw what Tim Berners-Lee had built, and the astonishing gift of it that he made to the world, putting it in the public domain, opening up this world that all of us have benefited from over the last 2 decades. Now, when we were there in the early days, you know, you guys may or may not know, O'Reilly built one of the very first commercial websites, if not the first. It was the first site to have advertising on the web, very first direct commercial intent. When we were out there evangelizing, people didn't understand the web. You know, if you've grown up with it, you kind of take for granted that you can click on a link and go anywhere in the world, and that absolutely anyone can add to this system. Right? That was just an unbelievable innovation, and when we showed it to people back in 1993, they could not believe it. It was astonishing to them. And now, we take it for granted. Now, we did have some bad moments. You know, there were these browser wars. Back in 1995, 1996, Microsoft, Netscape duking it out for who was going to control the browser. And what happened? The web started to become incompatible. You know, we had this site best viewed with Netscape Navigator, this site best viewed with Internet Explorer. And it was kind of an ugly time. And here's my worry. I think we're heading back into another ugly time. You might think it has to do with a new set of browser wars, perhaps, with the introduction of new browsers like Chrome, and you start to see the rivalry heating up between giants. But that's not really what I'm worried about. Starts on a lot of fronts. You may have seen the recent announcement by Rupert Murdoch that he was thinking of pulling the Wall Street Journal out of the Google search index. Now, everybody kind of said, good way for the Wall Street Journal to kill itself. That was the accepted wisdom. But Jason Calacanis, who's a keen observer of the internet scene, had just a week or two before had a very thought-provoking interview in which he said, hey, here's how big media could actually damage Google badly. They could withhold their content from Google and simultaneously make a Bing-only deal. Sounds like browser wars again. And so Jason felt quite vindicated, and of course then Michael Arrington picked up this thread, wrote a blog post about it, and so this sort of slightly ugly meme is starting to spread about let's have some mutually assured destruction in the search engine wars. That's not it. There's a lot of little irritations. The sites that create a toolbar that hide the original URL and try to capture your attention and don't let you navigate freely the way the web used to work. There's this tendency of sites like Facebook to warn you when you're going out into the big bad web. Now again, Facebook doesn't do this all the time, but it happens often enough that you say, whoa, maybe I won't follow that link after all. And there's other messages that Facebook is giving you. You're about to post this to the whole internet. Now, this is a different world. I mean, now Facebook has reasons for doing that. They have a promise of user privacy. They're trying to manage user preferences. But it's still a system that, even though it's of the web, is playing by different rules. And you see ways that it's somewhat at war with the web. Even though at the same time, Facebook is moving in the right direction. Now, actually, there was a great incident this last weekend where there was a bug, apparently, in which URLs stopped working in the Twitter newsfeed. Now, observers like Mashable immediately jumped to the conclusion that this was signs of an impending war between Twitter and Facebook, because the URLs seemed to be coming from Twitter. Turned out not to be the case at all. And so Facebook was quite outraged because, of course, they've been putting a lot of effort into supporting the open web, but there was still enough of a presumption that you see in the minds of people that maybe Facebook wasn't going to play by the rules that we've accepted for the last 15 years. But that's not all. When I introduced the term Web 2.0, a big part of it was I talked about the idea that the internet was becoming a platform. Now let's look at cloud computing. Whether it's Amazon Web Services or Windows Azure. I'm losing my clicker here. Or Google App Engine. In each case, it's really not the internet as platform. It's Amazon as platform. It's Microsoft as platform. It's Google as platform. So this is yet another sign, perhaps, that there's a platform war going on. And of course, we have the rebels, the open source people, saying we can bring this together. So, Red Hat just recently introduced a project Delta Cloud for open APIs, making it possible to move your apps easily from one provider to another. There's always that counter reaction. How about the phone wars? We're starting to see this idea that maybe some applications will only be available on the iPhone, some will only be available on Android. What kinds of web access will be allowed? Who's running the show? And this, of course, has led a lot of people looking at the iPhone App Store to be fretting about it. It's a wonderful, incredibly generative opportunity for new functionality, much of it accessing the web, and yet, again, it's playing by different rules. It's not an open system in the same way that the web was. Apple decides who gets to put an application up, what that application can do, when does it infringe on Apple's business. This isn't the way the web works. And of course, this has led observers like Michael Arrington, never afraid to take a strong position, to say Apple is rotten to the core. But I wouldn't go that far. But at the same time, we see that developers are saying, boy, these restrictions are really onerous. It's a different world. Not so good. But the biggest threat, now you guys recognize this scene if you're a geek, I would suspect. Web 2.0, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Right? When I first talked about Web 2.0, again, I focused on the idea that we are building an internet operating system. This has been a key part of the vision that I've been exploring long before we were calling it Web 2.0. Back in 2002, we actually had a conference focused on building the internet operating system. We didn't add the Web 2.0 term until a couple of years after that. But even there, what kind of operating system? Maybe that term also doesn't mean what we think it means. Now, one of my key Web 2.0 principles back in the very beginning was the idea that data is the intel inside of the next generation of applications. And I'm going to show that to you. Right? So if you think of the internet operating system, it's a data system. Its subsystems are things like databases of people, places, things, prices, and then functions that manipulate that data. Where are the people? How do you buy the things? And so on. And the demonstration of this is really clear in the latest announcement, which is a big part of this new web wars story, of turn-by-turn navigation on Android devices. If you think about what Google is offering there, it's an application that could only happen on the web. Right? It's not something you can just build on a phone because it relies on vast cloud databases. But more importantly, it relies on the intersection and the interoperation of a number of cloud databases. Because what Google actually offers, when you go and look at their official announcement, they give you a list of some of the things that they're planning on doing. Search in plain English. Take me from here to the Javits Center. Actually, I'm in the Javits Center, but suppose I weren't, right? That's a kind of search that Google can do because, A, they have competencies that they built in speech recognition. They also have a massive database of natural language concepts, of places. They can map that in. Of course, the fact that you can even search by voice, again, having that speech competency. And then, of course, there's the maps itself. And here's the really interesting point. those maps, a massive data asset that Google has built up over time, spending a lot of money, but they've really taken this whole set of databases, all of them that really Google has built, right? They used to license their location database, but gradually they basically took that over. They began speech by licensing, but they built their own data. And so really we get into this quite, I think, frightening prospect of mutually assured destruction. You know, so Apple says to Google, I'm sorry, you can't run Google Voice on the iPhone. Well, here's Google in response. Well, if you want Google Maps, you know, hey, it's only going to be on Android devices. So some interesting times brewing. There's a great post by Bill Gurley, venture capitalist, who starts this post with the famous scene from Crocodile Dundee, movie you may remember, in which Mick Dundee, the guy from Down Under, is confronted by some hoodlums with a switchblade, and he basically says, "That's not a knife." And he pulls out this massive Bowie knife. Says, "Now that's a knife." And you know, it's that kind of war that we're facing, where people are trumping each other with their various you know, points of leverage. So, you know, the point that I see as a point of concern is that there are certain services that only a certain player like Google can offer. Now, there's other services that only Facebook can offer. There's other ones that only Apple can offer. There's other ones that only Amazon can offer. And the risk, of course, is that these guys start to try to use that leverage. So let me talk a little bit about that in the context of that Google announcement. Google can offer these things for free. They've made the big investment. Literally nobody else, with the possible exception of Microsoft, possible exception of Nokia, could do this. Because Navtech, the leading provider of turn-by-turn navigations, which was acquired by Nokia for $8 billion last year, and TeleAtlas, the second player, which was acquired by TomTom, the GPS maker, for almost $4 billion. These guys have a business model that depends on selling access to that data. In fact, the iPhone app with turn-by-turn directions from TeleAtlas costs $99, right? But Google is giving it away for free, right? Now, this is a natural kind of extension for Google. It's not. I don't think Google is being evil here by being disruptive in the world of business. Turn-by-turn directions being free on the phone is an amazing boon to users, and it's a classic case of what Clayton Christensen talks about when he talks about disruptive technology, about what Schumpeter talks about when he talks about creative destruction and capitalism. But there's a risk implicit in this, and speech recognition, same thing. Nuance offers this data in packaged products, but also by license of technology. Tell.me, acquired by Microsoft, same story. The only way they could offer it for free is by destroying their existing business, which depends on the licensing model. So, but this is the question I've asked. If the internet is going to become an operating system with these interoperable data services, are they used for leverage to create what J.R.R. Tolkien famously called one ring to rule them all? Or are they going to be used in the style that we've always seen with the internet, in which small pieces are loosely joined, in which the world is interoperable, in which we use the best of breed from one player and the best of breed of another to bring together a new kind of application that doesn't belong to any one of us, but has to do with the free movement of users and information across the web. So Brady Forrest did a post on Radar just a couple of weeks ago after that Google announcement, and he suggested some things that Google might be able to do. Not all of which they're actually doing, but things like, you know, take me to the most happening place right now. Take me to my next appointment. Take me to the best points of interest around here. Now, what I did was I annotated the list of suggestions that Brady put forth with the one ring or the small pieces loosely joined logo to kind of show you that some of these features are ones that only Google can offer, that there's this gravitational pull of the Google services. And then there's other ones where they literally could make the choice to consume and build these services on the work of others. Great example, they could say, hey, we're going to work with everybody's calendar to say, take me to my next appointment, and not just make this a special feature that only works with Google Calendar. That would be a small pieces loosely joined move, whereas, hey, this is a competitive feature, works only with Google Calendar. That would be a one ring move. And you can go through and look at all these possible features through that filter. Is it contributing to the openness of the web, or is it leading us more down a path where one provider says, you must work with me across all of your applications? My one ring is the ring that controls all. And so I have some advice for Google here. And I think it's fairly basic. And it's to be rigorous in thinking through the benefit to the user. When Google offers free turn-by-turn directions, that's a massive user win, even though it is incredibly damaging to some existing companies and some existing business models, right? When Google offers free speech recognition, amazing win. Win for everybody. When they offer automated translation, which is something else they're working on, an amazing win for all of us, the whole world, right? When they, offer free docs and spreadsheets, I think that's a user win. When they do things like face recognition, which they're working on, or even Google Book Search, which has been controversial, I think that's a huge win for users. And even though there's been controversy about Google Book Search, about it leading to them having this monopoly, it's a monopoly that's in service of value to users, as opposed to simply, we're going to take control. And you look by contrast at some of Google's failures. They tended to be failures that were driven purely by the competitive impulse. Oh, we've got to eat Amazon's lunch. Let's try a shopping search engine. We got to have checkout, just like PayPal, right? We've got to have Knoll. Let's compete with Wikipedia. These are not fundamental innovations in which Google was doing something that only Google could do. And that kind of leads to this fabulous maxim from Jeff Jarvis. This was advice that he gave to journalists, but it's just as applicable, I think, to any of us who are building web services or building on web services. Do what you do best, link to the rest. This is actually quoted by John Borthwick in a fabulous post that I'm going to refer to later, so give him a hat tip there. Now, a great example of this do what you do best, link to the rest, is seen over at TypePad. Leah Culver published this graph recently showing the rise of OpenID and equivalents at TypePad. And you can kind of see that this is the big four are Google, Yahoo, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, this is a graph in which it all adds up to 100%. There was a second series of graphs that show the growth in which something like 85% 2 months ago were TypePad-only logins, and now they're up to something like 65% of logins using OAuth and Facebook Connect. And so this is a huge win for a technology that is do what you do best, link to the rest. Facebook and Twitter and OAuth are really becoming the gold standard for how people consume and use and do registration. So just to be clear, Google is working on this kind of stuff too. They, like every big company, there's a tension even within the company where there's some things where they're saying, wow, we can get competitive advantage out of this, and other places where they're saying, wow, we really need to push openness. We need to be in tune with this sharing style of the web. Eric Schmidt called it said, don't fight the internet. And this is a basic goal at Google. And you see this in things like Open Social, in PubSub, in even the fact that the new Google Wave is a federated protocol. They're actually saying to everybody, hey, you can implement this. You can have your own Wave server. When I wrote a blog post about this all on Monday, this blog post called The War for the Web, I made one controversial statement, which was that I said, I think in the end, Microsoft is going to become one of the great allies of the open standards movement on the web. And I see this for a couple of reasons. And actually, well, the evidence is already there. At Web 2.0 Summit a couple of weeks ago or last month, we saw the announcement of the Twitter integration. Just the other day, we saw announcement of integration of Wolfram Alpha into Bing search results. They are becoming a net consumer of other people's services in order to improve their services. This is great, great sign. But the thing that's so important is you shouldn't do this just because you're the underdog. What you see throughout history, whether it's IBM embracing Linux as a way to combat Microsoft, or whether we see it today in Google saying, well, we're going to embrace open social standards because Facebook's the winner there, or Microsoft saying we're going to use all these additional features in web services because Google's the winner here. That isn't the right reason to do it. Mark Twain gave us the right reason. He said, do the right thing. You will gratify some people and astonish the rest. And I think we should really get out there, figure out what is the right thing. Now, I mentioned this post by John Borthwick. The URL you can read at the top of the list if you go to the slides. And he has a set of great principles. But at the end, they boil down to something that's deep in the DNA of the internet. Back in 1980, John Postel wrote something called the robustness principle back in the RFC for TCP. And it said, TCP implementations should be robust. Right? They should have a general principle of robustness. Be conservative in what you do. Be liberal in what you expect from others. And I think that robustness principle is how we get from this and we avoid ending up here. With that, I really urge you all to think open as you build services, do what you do best, link to the rest. Thank you very much.